Hi guys, and welcome back to Used and Reviewed, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at a new Ryzen 3000 build. So this is a video that I've been wanting to do for a while now, but actually I want to let the dust settle a little bit because Ryzen 3000 was launched on the 7th of July. We're now towards the end of July. We've also had the Navi GPUs launched. Nvidia then came back with the super cards. So what I really wanted to do is just let the dust settle a little bit and come back with a build that I think is achievable and kind of in the price range I'm looking for. So really what I am looking for is a PC that's going to give you the best bang for buck with a budget of around $1,300 to sort of $1,500. Now that is fairly flexible, and I will, as we go through this build, I will show you why that is the case. So I'm actually using System Builder to build up the PC. I am in the UK, so we've got UK pricing here, but I've also got the US version as well, so we can update that as we go along. So let's get straight into it. And in terms of the CPU, letting the dust settle was a good idea because actually we've started to see a number of reviews coming out and we get a better understanding of how these processors are actually going to perform. So judging by what I have seen, I actually think the best bang for buck AMD RYZEN processor is the 37700X, and we're currently looking at about £318 for that CPU. Another consideration was potentially the 3800X, but with a price of nearly £400, £80 difference, actually having seen some of the reviews and the benchmarks that have come out, I don't actually think you're going to achieve anything substantial in terms of improved frame rates, etc. Personally, the £80 difference, $80, $90, whatever it might be, is probably not worth it. And also the biggest thing for me is probably the TDP. We've got 105 watts on the 3800X and only 65 watts on the 3700X, which is about 38% more efficient. So very efficient CPU. And okay, you're looking at a difference of 3.9 to 3.6 gigahertz in terms of base clock, but the turbo clock at 4.4 versus 4.5 is not too bad. And actually, again, going back to the best bang for buck, I think that's where we're going to sit. So that comes in at £318 if I just refresh the page, which is about $329 for you guys in the US. So in terms of CPU cooler, I'm actually going to stick with the Wraith. I think it's a Prism actually that's in the box. Again, great reviews and performance has been excellent. And for now, I think we're going to leave it at that, and we can always come back at a later date and amend the CPU if we want to go out and try and push that clock a bit further. Onto the motherboard, and this is where things get a little bit confusing in terms of where we are at the moment. As we're trying to get the best bang for buck, I'm really sort of trying to look at the B450 and probably the X470 boards rather than jump into the X570. I don't think I'm going to need PCI Express 4.0 for now, and with the premium that comes with the X570, I think it's probably a luxury that I can live without. One of the reasons for not building the system just yet is actually, as we can see, there has been a number of issues with Ryzen and some of the old X470 and B450 motherboards. So for example, MSI only a couple of days ago have just announced that they're going to release a new motherboard on the X470 platform to support Ryzen 3000. So for now, I think we're just going to have to take a stab in the dark and let things pan out a little bit, because actually I want to see what these new boards are going to look like, and at the minute we don't really know when they're going to be released and what the pricing is. So if we aim for around the £111 mark, £120 mark, then I think we could match up with an MSI X470 Gaming Plus motherboard, which for this kind of price range I think is a fairly decent motherboard, and might not give us some of those extra features you'll get at the high end with more VRMs, but actually for what I need for it and the purposes of this build, I think it's a good motherboard to go for. So £111 UK and about $127, nearly $130 US. So onto the memory, and really I'm looking at 16 gigabytes here at a 3600 megahertz. And the reason being, even AMD themselves have suggested that that is a sweet spot. And it's all down to the Infinity Fabric technology, which will allow memory to scale up to the one-to-one ratio up to 37 and 33 megahertz. So above this, you're going to see a diminishing return in terms of price to performance. So I actually think that this is probably the nice kind of sweet spot in terms of memory and speed. And so what I'm looking at is the Corsair Vengeance LPX 16 gigabyte memory. It's nice low profile memory, so we shouldn't have an issue with clearance. And at the moment, we've got it at around the £90 mark. From a UK perspective, and if I refresh the page, it's $95 in the States. In terms of storage, I've actually got plenty of storage that I can reutilize from an existing PC. I've got an SSD, some couple of hard drives. So I'm not going to add anything in here. However, really, you probably want to be looking for 500 gig SSD, maybe even a 256, something like that for your operating system. And then just go out and get a fairly large 2 terabyte hard drive that should see you through for a while. So I'm going to leave that there for now. And we're going to move on to the video card. Going back to what I said earlier about waiting, definitely worth waiting, because actually now we've got a different dynamic than we had at the beginning of July, in the fact that Nvidia have released their supercards and we're starting to see some reviews and benchmarks coming through now. Personally, for me, having looked at some of the benchmarks that are out there and considered price points, I think the RTX 2070 Super is probably the sweet spot in terms of performance and price. And what we're also seeing now is the likes of MSI, Gigabyte bringing out their own cards. So for the sake of this build, I'm going to pick a card which I think is probably going to be about the maximum I'm willing to pay. Still waiting on some of the reviews for these cards, but what I'm going to go with is the Gigabyte Gaming OC White. I've had Gigabyte graphics cards in the past and they've always been fairly good, and this one's got a 3-fan cooling system, 4-year warranty, and it's got a boost to the reference card clock speed of 1815 megahertz. At the moment though, there's not a lot of reviews out on these cards, and if we go over to overclockers, for example, a lot of these cards are on pre-order at the moment, so they're not launched. I think the best thing to do is sit back, wait, start to look at some of the reviews that are coming out, some of the benchmarks, and then bite the bullet and jump in. So if I set my preference at around 550 and I pick one up for 520, 530, then so be it. If we quickly refresh, there's no prices available actually in the States, so that's interesting. Let me have a quick look. And strangely enough, it's sat there, but there is a price. So again, $550. So we'll add that to our build. If we now move on to cases, and I think really for me there's only one choice here, and that's the very popular NZXT H500, which is currently at £70 mark. It's a great looking case, and I can see why it's been really popular. There is actually an update to this version. There's a H510 due to launch very shortly. I think it's even available in the States at the moment. And there's also the H10 Elite that's going to be available, which actually will have a tempered glass up front as well as side. Let's add that to our build. And if we just quickly refresh the US, it's currently at $90 in the US. So for once, we don't get stung here in the UK. So the final piece of the jigsaw really is the power supply. Now I've actually got a 600 watt power supply that I'm going to reutilize again for my existing system. Judging by this build, we've got an estimated wattage of 364 watts. Now stick in some storage and you're probably going to be around the 400 watts mark, so 600 watts should probably clear it. And actually what I would advise is that you go and try out a power supply calculator if you're not sure exactly what kind of power supply wattage you're going to need, and I'll stick the links in the description of one that I use that you can actually put in your entire system build, as I have done here, and it's recommending the PSU wattage of 459 watts, and therefore I recommend a power supply 80-ish efficiency would be around the 600 watt mark. So it's always worth checking, make sure that you've got enough power in there, and of course for any further expansion you might need to do, or for overclocking as well. So that pretty much completes the build, and now we're probably at around the £1,100 mark. One thing I did notice is when I added the GPU from the US side, it knocked this one down to the non-white version at £510. So we've got a little bit of headroom in terms of my max was around the 550 mark. So you might be sat there thinking, well, this isn't a £1,300 or $1,500 build or whatever, but really, if you think about adding in the storage that I've already got and potentially a power supply, and I'll quickly do that now, then you're probably going to get to there or thereabouts in terms of figures. That really is a complete system, and actually you're going to be coming in near enough around that £1,300 figure. And if I refresh the US page, it's added those bits in for us. Then again, actually it's coming in with the rebates at $1,372. So I am going to be building this system. It's not going to be yet. I'm going to create a video as well that's probably going to appear up here at some point. There's reasons why I don't think it's a good time to actually build the Ryzen system just yet. So check that out when it's available. But other than that, I will be building the system. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. Leave us a comment, let me know what you think, your thoughts on this build, and make sure you give us a thumbs up. Until next time, we'll see you soon.